What is going on, everyone out there? If I had some turntables, I would use it right now. Like, what's that, Run DMC? I'm joking. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing okay out there in this beautiful world. I use beautiful in quotation marks, but it's all a mindset at this point. I think that's probably about the best place that we can pull in some hope. But hope is real. Anyway, it is me, Troi, and I'm making this voiceover because I've been gone for a long time as it regards me coming on my own channel and talking about some of the books that I've read or been reading. Specifically, this is going to be me talking about the Wheel of Time series because, as some of you guys know who've been following me, newly following, I've kind of dedicated the year 2020 to reading the entirety of Robert Jordan's high fantasy series, The Wheel of Time. It's not gonna happen. I mean, I could bust through with the next few books. Well, it ain't few, but I can bust through with the next books. But I don't think it's gonna happen. Everybody's life has been turned upside down at this point, and I'm just kind of still in my fifis a little bit. But I said I'm gonna pull it together because I've tried all summer to pull it together to come back and discuss these books that as I read them, because I do want to talk about them and I do like to engage and converse with those who are fans of this series here on YouTube. And here I am trying once again to talk about my reading of The Shadow Rising, which is the fourth book in Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time series. Some people have left me comments asking, was I still reading the series? And I just got to say thank y'all to some of the people who actually enjoy my videos talking about these books, because I feel like my videos are chopped and screwed, much aligned with T-Pain's Chopped and Screwed, that song. Yes, I'm still reading the series, although I'm in this very weird space right now with book number 6. But still, I did read book number 4, The Shadow Rising, back in April. And I did read book number 5, The Fires of Heaven, back in May. So, I'm excited. I'm going to have the 6th book in a hardback form from my library tomorrow. It's already in transition. And I'm hoping that'll pick me back up into reading this series regularly, because I do miss the world. And I feel like the longer that I keep away from it, the more my excitement starts to dissipate. You feel what I'm saying? So I want to really try to hammer in and get back into this world. With a few disappointments, I think that I need to settle or get some clear evidence of that they're not going to be disappointments, as I anticipate what's to come with some of my favorite characters of the series. So speaking of book number 4, The Shadow Rising, as many of you guys have let me know, this is the book where Jordan really opens up the world to the reader. He leaves behind his Tolkien-esque, I just like saying that, inspiration of the first 3 books. The Shadow Rising is that's the beginning arc of the next 3 books. Also, people do say that The Shadow Rising is their favorite entry in the series. So I did anticipate that being the place that I would take on as my favorite, but my favorite is still actually The Great Hunt, the 2nd book. So as I was reading The Shadow Rising, I was hoping that I wouldn't get into this space where I was like, okay, well, maybe I've already hit my peak of enjoyment. But I did enjoy The Shadow Rising. However, as compared to the first 3 books, I did have a space in which I had to stop reading the books, the Shadow Rising, as well as The Fires of Heaven. I had to stop reading to take like a 2-week break off from reading the books to read other things, because I got exhausted at this point. And I'll tell you exactly where it happened here in a minute. So what is The Shadow Rising about? First, it's really quite clear. To sum it up as quickly as I can, this is the book where the character of Rand is going to officially step into his role as the Dragon Reborn. And here's the thing I like about Rand. I like that he is not consumed with the ideology of what it means to be the Dragon being reborn first and foremost, as well as that of the magic that comes along with that particular role. I like the fact that Rand, and I'm going to say this so clearly here, Rand wants to do his homework on what it means to take on this role. So much appreciation in that. Even though he has all these different guiding forces, specifically that are Moraine, trying to egg him in one direction, Rand wants to do his homework on what it means to be the dragon being reborn. So in this book, he's going to follow the people of the Aiel to the Aiel Waste. And the people of the Aiel, they're like, I look at them like these Arabian Nights. Not really though, but they have like these coverings. They have this very aboriginal, indigenous kind of feel to them, or contexture to them, that I think of when I envision them. But they are a nation of people who are closely tied to the dragon being reborn, or the prophecy. You know, they have probably the best understanding of what it means to be the dragon being reborn, and they have connected with Rand in the previous book. So he is going to follow them to get all the information he can on what it means to be the dragon being reborn, as opposed to taking the road that Moraine has laid out for him to go after one of the high agents of the Dark Lord instead. I really appreciate that about the character of Rand, because it just reinforces that, I guess you can say, that bit of, I don't want to say humanity, but that bit of self-awareness, I would say, that he has to be very cautious and gentle with his ability to be able to wield magic, because first and foremost, beyond himself and the sort of pride that he could obtain from being the dragon being reborn, is that he has to protect his friends. He has to protect the people that he loved with this ability. And I like that part of this book, because not only do we see Rand, develop himself with this newfound understanding about his powers, but it's also the book where we get to look into his background for sure, where his birth parents came from, what was their particular story, because this book really does, The Shadow Rising does take us back. This was the book that was necessary. It was the book that really had to lay down the foundation of what it means to be the dragon being reborn. The history of it, the lore, the truths, the lies, the myths, all of that stuff had to come to play, and it was all delivered or expressed through the character of Rand. So that's one point that I loved about this book. So now about the character of Matt. Matt's storyline in The Shadow Rising, I think Matt is, to me, is still the most unpredictable and wild card of the group. I always kind of feel like with Matt that Jordan, while he very much well crafted the storyline of, definitely Rand, and probably more so Perrin, I think that Matt's storyline is the one where he got to play a little bit more with the development of the character of Matt. Well, and added to that, I like the fact that that's Matt's storyline is the one where we get to really look at the interesting other magical creatures, if you will, that reside within this world, and who have utmost capabilities that are designed to help continue the impetus of all these characters coming together to save the world. And the biggest expression of that is the fact that although Matt makes a bargain with one of these quote unquote creatures, there's a lot that can go into that I'm very understating. They equip him with a couple of items by the end of this book that is going to help him fulfill his particular role. Like I said, Matt's story is still, I think that his is the one that Jordan is still the most craftiest with right now. So now I'm going to get into Perrin's storyline in The Shadow Rising. He has to return to their home of Two Rivers, as he has gotten information in regards to the Whitecloaks coming to, they're looking for him to charge him with a murder that he committed like 2 books ago. With this being said, the areas and villages around the Two Rivers is being attacked by Trollocs. So there's a really busy moment going on there that he has planted himself inside of, but his main mission in returning back home is to not only defend his home and defend the homes or farmsteads in the nearby area, but to also go ahead and accept his judgment via the Whitecloaks. There's some interesting twists that come along with that, where he ends up kind of coming out on top of all that as the force of strength. So he is very much rising to his role, his leadership role. And one of the things I do like about Perrin as his rise in his leadership role is the fact that he's pretty much reluctant about it. So that gives us that space of being able to work with him in developmental wise. But Perrin, to me, is probably the character who is most sincerely empathizing with I guess you could say, like, the grief of what these characters have left behind. He eventually gets some very bad news himself as regards what happened to his family. Here's the thing that I'm having trouble with, and I know I'm not the only one, and I know people that do these deep analysis of these characters and stuff. Girl, let me tell you, I don't care. It really is a first impressions thing with me. I don't want to look deep into this I don't want to. I'm gonna have to look deep into these books anyway during the second reading, because I just first read them for the story first. But I don't want to look deep into folly. Okay. So as much as I love Perrin's storyline and I really like the direction he's going into, I kind of feel like the character of Folly is undermining the story of Perrin's particular storyline a bit. And I say that in the sense that I don't necessarily like the fact that he's attached already. I would like to see him strike out much more in an independent and individualistic continue forward in these particular fashions and avenues first, before he decides to get attached to this character who like I said, feel like is very undermining to him. Although I do understand the motivation of the character of Folly. If I'm saying it right, is it Fally? We'll call her Falcon because that's one of her dub names. Although I do understand it, and I kind of get it, it's just that it's very hard for me to read these books and watch Perrin rise up, grow, develop, pull together these strike teams, pull together this little mini army, have these different conversations and transactions with other oppositional forces, using a lot of, I would say, word salad, but it's not. I just want to use that word. But the point is that he's really growing as a character while staying attached deeply to his roots. And then you have this character who, her job is to punch him and twist his beard and pull his hair to get him to display some emotions. That is annoying. I found her to be incredibly obnoxious. And I know that one of the things that this series is criticized about is the relationships between some of the characters. This is one that I'm very ill of. This I cannot get with this character. It really kind of, to be completely frank, it kind of boned me out. Like I was really sad to watch the character Perrin, who at the beginning of the series I was still working my way towards, and then watching him do these incredible things and pull off these amazing feats, as I just mentioned, and then turn around and being punched. Turned around and being punched by this girl because he won't cry. It's just like, oh my god. But I think that's probably just a personal thing for me anyway. Like, don't touch me. Like, please don't touch me. Like, don't put your arms on that. Yeah, don't touch me. But I really can't get with it right now. I really wish that this character would go away, and I know I'm not the only one who feels that way. And like I said, I know people have these analysis of what is her role and all this kind of stuff. Nah, BS. I don't want to hear nothing about it. Get on somewhere, Folly. Okay, now speaking of Egwene, so I'm kind of a little bit, I don't know. Egwene is not necessarily stepping up far enough for me. The male perspectives in these books, they are much more robust, clearly. But Nynaeve's narrative is robust herself, and I guess Egwene is just right there in the middle, but it's kind of on a little too low for me. Like, I want to see her get her shine for real, but she ends up going to following Rand and Matt and Moraine to the Aiel Waste to get a firm study and grasp of her ability to enter into this dream world via I forgot the name of the world. It's called Tel Arenriadol or something. I don't have the books in front of me to consult with the glossary, okay? But yeah, she wants to learn how to operate within this dream world, and she needs the help of the Aiel Waste, the Wise Ones, which is a group of women, to do so. It's, I don't know. If there was some tack of danger and adventure involved with her storyline, it would be much more interesting. But I really don't know yet with Egwene. It's really unfortunate because one of the things that I loved most, one of the scenes I loved the absolute positive most as she was presented in the first book, is her ability to keep up with the characters. Although she had this unassuming quality about her where she probably couldn't, but I loved in the first book that she was able to keep up with characters. And one of the scenes that continuously strike out at me is when she used that slingshot to save Perrin. And I'm just like, why she can't be that, you know what I'm saying? Like, why she got to be wrapped up and sitting in sweat tents going to doing it. I just like, I want Egwene to get her shine. I want her to glow up. And I know we have to do those little analysis. Well, this is what Jordan wanted her to do. And no. I want to see the Egwene with the slingshot get back out there and start defending and fighting and not, arguing with her friends and stuff all the time. I just really want to see her just kind of rise up a little bit more. So I'm sure that will take place in the future. In the meantime, I guess you can say a not so supplement to what I'm looking for in Egwene, I most certainly find in the character of Nynaeve, as she in this particular book, The Shadow Rising, she is just like a force to be reckoned with all the way through. Nynaeve is easily one of my top 3 favorite characters. I really identify with her stubbornness. I'm not so much her anger, that I do find her anger and her always having an attitude problem to be very, very, very obnoxious. But her stubbornness and her outspokenness and her willingness to say what it is that she's thinking and her determination to get what it is that she needs to get done, her clear-headedness, that I do really identify when it concerns this character. But yeah, I really enjoy watching Nynaeve do what she do. I honestly, I think Elayne kind of holds her back, to be honest with you. I'm trying to get to this place where I don't be annoyed with Elayne, but it's a good counterbalance, that forceful nature with that much more calm and peaceful one. But it's old to me. It's old. Nynaeve is just like a force to be, like I said, to be reckoned with. You can't hold her back. Nynaeve so far has presented one of the top final confrontations in this series so far, when she went up against Mark-Hedian toward the end of this book. I just thought that was a fantastic scene. It just really reinforced why I really like this character of Nynaeve. I gotta be honest, she get on my nerves with the anger stuff. Like, that's old and it's tired, and of course that's gonna be addressed much more in the next book. But it's just nice to see. I think she really does character her particular story thread well. So that's really how I felt about all the characters in this particular book. So a couple of things that I do want to point out, both as it regards how I felt about the book, I guess. So I ended up, as I said, taking a break from this book back in April to put it aside to read other things, because one of the things that I struggled with, I think a bit too much, given that this was a really thick book with a lot of information pounded within, a lot of development and flow going into each of the story threads. So I think that what made me stop was too much time within one particular story thread, as opposed to just that right balance of between. I remember I specifically stopped reading when it took us, I don't know, I think we spent so much time within Rand's story thread, and I think it was like midway when we finally switched back to Perrin's story, where I clocked out. I clocked out. I was exhausted. I was exhausted at that point. I said, you know what, I need to go read something else, because and I almost felt like I just read a whole different story, a whole different book right there, and it was time for me to put it aside. Like if you could split this book into 3 different individual books. So that was the thing that really made me clock out. And it's interesting because I actually started reading this book a lot slower than the previous one. I just love to read. So I do generally read 100 pages a day. And people be like, oh, you may be reading too fast. You're going to miss something. I'm always going to miss something in a book. That's just evident. I always say that I read first a story, and then secondly for, anything else in between. So I'm always going to miss something. But I don't try to read 100 pages a day to try to rush through a book specifically. It's just that 100 pages is like, that's a meal to me, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's it. That's my meal. I'm done. But I feel satisfied with my day. But I did try to read this book 50 pages a day because it was so thick, and I didn't want to I want to give myself just a little bit of chance to just pace myself back a little bit, because I know it's a lot that's gonna uncover. That on top of a pandemic, okay, at the beginning of April. So I did find myself worn out when I got to the end of one particular block of space featuring Rand's storyline. Very interesting, because I love the intrigue that went into that. But when we switched back to Perrin's story, it's just like I got exhausted. But I did make it through. I will say that in the last 400 pages, I flew through the book because they were so good. The last 400 pages were amazing. I absolutely loved that. With Perrin finally declaring his position within saving the village, as well as his position within being judged by the Whitecloaks, where a deal fell through. As I said, Nynaeve going up against Marquedian. Rand, as he has to fight this opposition of being the dragon being reborn within the Aya Waste, where one tribe of Aya people are pro-Rand and another tribe is anti-Rand, as they prop up another individual to be the dragon being reborn, although he's very much false. And I got an issue with that in the following book. So yeah, the last chapters were just absolutely amazing. I loved them. Adding to that, one of my biggest complaints in the first 3 books was that there was not enough stage presence when it came to the Forsaken characters, the high agency Forsaken characters in the series. And guess what? That has improved dramatically. Even not just the Forsaken characters. I love the Black Ajah. I love the Dark Fiend characters. I am a big fan of Liandrin. I was asking somebody, is it okay for me to like Liandrin? But Black Ajah. But the very big improvement from Osmodine to Lanfear. Just very big improvement when it comes to the Forsaken characters. I love that. Actually, in some respects, I think that their storylines is much more interesting because they're so clear cut, and their backgrounds and who they are before they signed on to be agents of the Dark One. All that stuff is very interesting to explore. So, The Shadow Rising was a good book. It would probably be maybe my 3rd favorite. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really sure. There's some complexities in making that kind of decision right now. But I did enjoy it. Unfortunately, I wish I was making this video before immediately after I read it, because I feel like there's so much that I could really go into, like Ruadine and much more into my favorite character, Moraine, and her particular role within this book. But with that being said, these books, they have to be you have to take your time reading them. You really do. I could fly through the first 3 books, and I kind of realized when it came to The Shadow Rising that I probably have to step my pace back just a little bit. I think I forgot to talk about Men. Men has stepped it up too. Men story thread stepped it up too. Just wow. There really is a lot that we can bring in these books, but I'm just gonna stop it here. So I appreciate y'all for stepping in, and I guess we'll go ahead and talk about the Fires of Heaven next, where I hit another snag, and I'll explain what made me snag in that book. So we'll go from there.